In the era of Rebirth, Tang Anning gave up on Bai Zhiqing and married Ye Sanshan from the same village. Tang Anning, who fought against his wicked mother-in-law, dealt with his greedy sister-in-law, and sought medical treatment with his foolish husband everywhere. After marriage, Tang Anning was not idle for a moment. In this era of insufficient food and poor clothing, Tang Anning relied on Taobao Mall to build large brick houses. My husband's illness has healed and his true identity has been exposed. It turns out that he is the only son of the famous Zhang family in Kyoto. My mother-in-law was extremely grateful and waved her hand. Xiao Ning, this is the courtyard house I bought for you. My loyal dog husband held her hand affectionately. Daughter-in-law, all my life is yours. Key words of the novel. Win thoroughly, I became rich by Taobao Mall in the S without a pop-up window. Win thoroughly, I became rich by Taobao Mall in the S by downloading the complete works of TXT. Win thoroughly, I became rich by Taobao Mall in the S by reading the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Rebirth with the Mall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Rebirth with the Mall. The dilapidated adobe house emitted a smell of soil, and the pale sunlight shone through the decaying wooden windows, sprinkling on Tang Anning's weak face on the bed. Shame. A girl's family threatened Bai Zhiqing by jumping into the river in search of life and death for her. She didn't even look in the mirror. Can Bai Zhiqing take notice of her? If it weren't for being saved by Ye Sanshan who passed by, she wouldn't have even lost her life. This matter is spreading widely in the village now. How can we hold our heads high in the future? Chen Xiangyun, the second sister-in-law, came in through the window with a mocking voice. Tang Anning listened to Chen Xiangyun's humorous voice, looked at the old calendar on the table, and realized something. She was reborn. It is now 74 years old, she has just turned 20 and has not married Bai Zhiqing yet. In her previous life, she was determined to marry the educated youth Bai Zhiqing from the city. Who would have thought that Bai Zhiqing was just using her emotions, living with her for many years? After the policy of educated youth returning home was introduced, Bai Zhiqing left without saying goodbye and left her alone to pull her 3 children. She left her child at home and went alone to the city to find Bai Zhiqing, who was eager for her husband. However, she found that Bai Zhiqing had already started a new family in the city. Bai Zhiqing's new wife scolded her for being shameless and even let her family beat her seriously. Tang Anning, who couldn't think of it for a moment, found a river and jumped down, recalling all the things that happened in her past life. Tang Anning realized that the tragedy of her life began when she fell in love with Bai Zhiqing. Bai Zhiqing is a petty person who forgets his interests and abandons his wife and children. In this life, she will not have any further relationship with Bai Zhiqing. She wants to choose herself a responsible man as her husband again. Goo. I sang the empty city plan in my stomach. Tang Anning frowned. It was still a time of material poverty, especially for the remote and almost isolated mountain village. Her body is so weak that she urgently needs to supplement her nutrition, but now she can't even eat enough. Where is there any extra food to nourish her body? Tang Anning propped up her weak body and got out of bed. As soon as she walked into the yard, her eyes suddenly lit up, and a visible shopping mall interface appeared. At the same time, a warning voice rang in her mind. Ding! 2 tails of wild dandelions have been found. Are they for sale? Selling price: 6 yuan. Tang Anning thought he was starving and had an illusion. He was first startled, then rubbed his eyes hard and found that the interface of the shopping mall was even clearer than before. After regaining her senses, Tang Anning finally believed in the reality before her. She was reborn with the mall. Tang Anning took a closer look and indeed saw a cluster of dandelions growing in the corner of the courtyard wall. She nodded weakly and tentatively responded to the prompt in her mind, exchange. As soon as the words fell, the interface of the Taobao-like shopping mall in front of her began to automatically switch. Although Tang Anning was dizzy, she still understood the entire process. isn't this a transaction process similar to Taobao? Tang Anning nervously stared at the mall and quickly carried out a series of automatic shelving, pricing, and sales operations, secretly shocking her that the mall system was really impressive. When Tang Anning regained her senses, she found that the dandelion in the corner of the wall was gone. At the same time, she had an extra 6 yuan in her account in the mall. Tang Anning muttered to himself, "What can I buy for 6 yuan? Can I buy 2 eggs?" As soon as the conversation ended, the mall prompted. Ding! I have purchased 2 eggs, cost 2.6 yuan, account balance 3.4 yuan. Tang Anning felt her hands sink. She looked down and saw an egg lying in the palms of her left and right hands. Tang Anning looked at the 2 firewood eggs in his hand and his eyes lit up. Although she doesn't know which era the prices of the shopping mall she carries are from, she can at least survive using the mall in this era. At this moment, everyone in the family has gone to work, and only the second sister-in-law Chen Xiangyun is resting in the room. Chen Xiangyun is an elementary school teacher who is lazy, and everyone in the family is afraid of her. Taking advantage of the absence of anyone at home, Tang Anning quickly took 2 eggs bought from the mall and walked to the kitchen. He added water to the pot and wolfed them down after cooking. After finishing 2 firewood eggs, Tang Anning felt much better. She walked out of the kitchen, and the corner of her eye keenly caught a black shadow, hiding stealthily at her doorstep. Tang Anning immediately walked towards the door, and the dark figure seemed to be frightened. He threw down a package of things and quickly turned around and ran away. Tang Anning chased after her and saw the fleeing figure, tall and thin, dressed in tattered clothes. It was easy to tell that she was the foolish third son of the Ye family, Ye Fan, who had rescued her from the river after falling into the water. Tang Anning recalled that after joining the army, Ye Fan suffered a head injury and was discharged from the military at home. He used to be a good handsome guy, but from then on, he became a well-known fool far and wide, unable to even get his wife. Ye Fan didn't know why he had a good impression of her, and every time he saw her, he would giggle foolishly from afar. Tang Anning deliberately jumped into the river in front of Bai Zhiqing in search of life and death. Originally, she wanted to force Bai Zhiqing to go into the water and save her, but she was rescued by Ye Fan, who had returned from work. Since then, rumors about her and the foolish third son of the Ye family have spread throughout the village. Ye Fan foolishly tried to show her kindness multiple times, but was constantly beaten and scolded away by her. Therefore, Ye Fan was very afraid of her and ran away as soon as he saw her. But later a miracle happened, and Ye Fan's biological parents actually came to the door and helped Ye Fan heal his injuries. Ye Fan's true identity was also exposed as a result. Originally, Ye Fan was supposed to have grown up in the city courtyard, but it was only because his foster mother, Wu Xiuzhen, deliberately held the wrong child that Ye Fan, who should have grown up in the courtyard, became Ye San. Only Chen Xiangyun himself knew about Ye Fan being an adopted son, not even old Ye, let alone the villagers. The only thing the villagers know is that Ye San is very unpopular at home. Ye Fan has been beaten and scolded since childhood. After joining the military, he used his own salary to support his family, and even his retirement allowance was firmly held by Mrs. Ye, who did not give him a penny. Someone advised Wu Xiuzhen to use this money to treat Ye Fan, otherwise it would delay Ye Fan's search for a matchmaker, and as a result, she was scolded and taken away by Wu Xiuzhen. In Wu Xiuzhen's eyes, these coins are more important than Ye Fan's life. As a result, Ye Fan's illness was repeatedly delayed, causing him, who was originally a talented person, to look like an unkempt beggar at a good age. Later, Ye Fan, who had regained his true identity, cured his illness and also married and had children in the city. Seeing Tang Anning, who was once again searching for her husband in the city, and seeing her much older than her actual age, Ye Fan's eyes flashed with a hint of heartache. Although he didn't say much, Ye Fan still asked his subordinates to help Tang Anning a lot, allowing Tang Anning to find the missing whitewood forest in the vast city of Beijing. Tang Anning dared not look directly into Ye Fan's red eyes. It wasn't until then that she fully realized she had made the wrong choice. Ye Fan is a responsible person, and Tang Anning knows in his heart that he will never be able to surpass Ye Fan in this lifetime. If I had known that Ye Fan's future life would undergo such a huge reversal, she shouldn't have been so harsh to Ye Fan in the beginning. Returning from the memories of the previous life, Tang Anning looked at Ye Fan's thin back and sighed. This child, who is not loved by his father or mother, is truly pitiful. She bent down and picked up the bag on the ground. When she opened it, there were 4 eggs, 2 white flour mantou, and a stack of food stamps and meat stamps. In this era, eggs and white flour mantou are rare things. Ye Fan took such valuable things to her from home, and Wu Shizhen certainly beat and scolded her when she returned home. As for the grain and meat coupons, it seems that they were secretly saved by Ye Fan. Did the 3 fools from the Ye family give it to you again? Tang Anning was stunned, and the thing in his hand was snatched by a person. She frowned and turned her head to see her second sister. Law, Chen Xiangyun, holding the eggs and 2 white steamed buns she had snatched from her hand. With a hint of mockery, she said, "I think Ye Lao-san is treating you quite well. Your reputation has already been tarnished like this. If it really doesn't work out, let's just have a fight with Ye Lao-san. In the end, getting married in a girl's family is all for the sake of hurting people. Whether he's stupid or not, treat you well." End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Bai Zhiqing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Bai Zhiqing. Chen Xiangyun holds the highest status in the family, and the whole family is afraid of her. As usual, whenever there is something good in the family, it is always important for Chen Xiangyun. So this time, it was only natural for Chen Xiangyun to snatch the things from Tang Anning's hand. Chen Xiangyun thought that Tang Anning would still let her go as usual, but he didn't expect Tang Anning to snatch the things back. Second sister. Law, Ye Fan can't even eat enough himself. We can't accept his things for no reason. I will return these things later. Tang Anning stubbornly held the eggs and white bread in his arms. Tang Anning can't quite remember from which day Ye Fan started treating her well, but she remembers the specific reason. That day when she came back from the ground, she saw Ye Fan, dressed in tattered clothes, being surrounded by several children throwing stones and scolding him as a fool. Tang Anning couldn't bear to watch it, so she walked over and drove those children away. Unexpectedly, from then on, he unexpectedly took over Ye Fan, this loyal dog. Since then, Ye Fan has come to deliver some delicious food to her every now and then. And all the delicious food brought by Ye Fan was snatched away by his second sister. Law, Chen Xiangyun. Chen Xiangyun thought she had misunderstood. She stared at Tang Anning with a sarcastic tone and said, "Ye Fan is a fool, what do you understand? What's wrong? You've developed feelings for Ye Fan's embrace, and you still feel sorry for a fool. The children are all growing up. Give me the things, and I'll give them to Xiaolong and Xiaofeng." Chen Xiangyun and Tang Anning's second brother Tang Imin have a son and a daughter. Every time there is something good in the family, Chen Xiangyun uses 2 children as an excuse, but in fact, everything is taken back by Chen Xiangyun and eaten by himself. Chen Xiangyun has been bumped into several times by Tang Anning, who used to be there. In this era when the whole village was thin and bony, Chen Xiangyun's 2 children did not grow any flesh, but on the contrary, Chen Xiangyun himself became increasingly plump day by day. Tang Anning said coldly, "Even if we give this little thing to the children, the 7 children in the family should be treated equally. Little Dragon and Little Phoenix should eat it, Big Brother and Sister. Law's 3 trees should also eat it, and Big Brother and Sister. Law's stones and grass should also eat it. I'll keep the things for now, and when our mother comes back from the ground, let's divide the things equally among the 7 children." Chen Xiangyun was taken aback and didn't expect her sister. Law Tang Anning to wake up with a big change in personality. She dared to confront her head on. This family can only be decided by her, is my sister. Law planning to rebel. Seeing Chen Xiangyun's 2 eyes staring intently at the things in her arms, almost reaching out a hook, Tang Anning deliberately said, second sister. Law, don't you want to take these things back and prepare them for yourself to eat? Chen Xiangyun's face turned red when he was poked at the center of the matter, and then he snorted, who cares about the little thing Ye Sanshan gave you? After speaking, Chen Xiangyun left cursing. Chen Xiangyun thought angrily that after her sister. Law woke up from falling into the water, she had become more determined. It seemed that she planned to support Wang Xiulian in the future. No, she must find a way to make this sister. Law marry out as soon as possible. This family can only be decided by her. Tang Anning hid the eggs and white flour mantu in a safe place in the kitchen, ready to go to the ground to have a look. It's only 3 o'clock in the afternoon now, and every household's labor force is working, which is exactly the time when they are working vigorously. She went to the field, using the excuse of going to work. Maybe she could discover some good things and exchange them in the mall. Having made up her mind, Tang Anning changed into a dark waisted shirt, paired it with a pair of long pants, changed into a pair of sandals, and carried a bucket to the ground. Before falling into the water, her task was to water the field, but before finishing her work, she fell into the water. Now she plans to continue pouring the remaining piece of land. Tang Anning held a bucket and saw Bai Zhiqing and Bai Mulin working from a distance. In her previous life, she had to cling to Bai Mulin, so she was eventually assigned to work in the same area as Bai Mulin. Bai Mulin was wearing a white shirt, black pants, and fair skin. Under a tree next to him was a book called The Little Prince, by French writer Exupéry. When resting, Bai Mulin sat under the tree to cool off, holding a book and reading aloud. The aura of Wenqing captivated many girls in the village, who shyly surrounded the whitewood forest and listened to it read. This also includes Tang Anning. At this moment, Tang Anning looked at Bai Mulin, with a simple face, a medium-sized figure, neatly styled short hair, and a literary and green aura. Compared to other rural strong men with tan skin and a lack of charm, Bai Mulin was indeed charming. No wonder so many women in the village are obsessed with him, and even some of the educated youth in the village like Bai Mulin. But compared to Yi Fan, who later put on the uniform, Bai Mulin was much paler. When Tang Anning went to the city to search for his husband, he met Yi Fan, who later had a majestic appearance. Therefore, when he looked back at the extraordinary and refined Wenqing Bai Mulin, he suddenly felt that Bai Mulin was nothing more than that. Bai Zhiqing, Tang Anning is here. The woman who jumped for you is bothering you again. I don't know what this woman plans to do today. Among the people working, one of the educated youth was the first to recognize Tang Anning. When they saw her walking far away with a bucket in hand, they immediately exclaimed with great enthusiasm, "Let the world know." The other people working in this field stopped their work one after another, raised their hoes, and rested their hands on the hoe handle, looking as if they were ready to watch the show. Bai Mulin also heard it. He deliberately pretended not to hear and didn't stop his hoe, continuing to work. Tang Anning is a beautiful girl from Dai village, with a tall and graceful figure, a oval face, and a pair of hopeful eyes. The only downside is that the skin has turned a bit darker. Being entangled by such a girl greatly satisfied Bai Mulin's vanity, especially when he heard the envious voices of the people around him. Bai Mulin felt even more proud in his heart, but he would not show this kind of pride, otherwise it would make him appear frivolous and not in line with his literary temperament. Regarding Tang Anning's entanglement, Bai Mulin did not refuse, take the initiative, or respond. Moreover, Bai Mulin believed that he had completely grasped Tang Anning. The more he did this, the more Tang Anning became unwilling and wanted to entangle him. Therefore, every time Tang Anning comes, Bai Mulin always looks calm and relaxed. The more calm he was, the more Tang Anning chased after him, shouting "Mulin gu" and "Mulin gu non-stop." Bai Mulin put down his hoe, picked up a handkerchief to wipe the sweat off his forehead, and then sat under the tree, picked up The Little Prince and focused on reading it. Several girls immediately gathered around. Mulan, please continue reading to us. Take a good look at Brother Mulan's reading. That Tang Anning really doesn't know how much she weighs. She's also worthy of pestering Mulan Gu. I'm sorry. Tang Anning carried a bucket, stepped on the field ridge, and reached the well. He put down the rope on the bucket and skillfully drew water from the well. After filling the bucket with water, she pulled it out of the well and walked towards the ground with the bucket in hand. From a distance, I could see several girls gathered around the whitewood forest under the tree, holding a book in his hand and focusing on reading the stories inside. His beautiful figure exuded a sense of atmosphere reminiscent of a male protagonist in a literary film. Not far away, several people holding hose were looking at Tang Anning with ill intentions and said in a theatrical tone, "She's here. She must be looking for Bai Zhiqing again." End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Selling Wild Vegetables in the Mall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Selling Wild Vegetables in the Mall. Tang Anning completely ignored it. She carried a bucket and walked around Bai Zhiqing and the group of onlookers in the field, then went to water the unheated land. I still pity the slender figure of my back. Occasionally, when I straighten up to wipe sweat, the shirt that pinches my waist perfectly highlights my waist. The long hair scattered around my ears covered my gentle profile, like a beautiful scenery in the fields. A few young men stared straight at Tang Anning's back, rolling their dry Adam's apple fiercely. It's really strange. Why didn't she come and pester Bai Zhiqing today? I think you know how to be shameless, right? She was carried out of the water by Ye Sanshan, and it has been spread throughout the village. She should have self-awareness and know that she is not worthy of Bai Zhiqing. The crowd was discussing with ill intentions. Bai Mulan held a book and sat under the tree, gently furrowing his brows. It's surprising that Tang Anning didn't bother him today. Several girls in the village saw Bai Mulan stop reading and were still unsatisfied, so they all pestered him. Bai Zhiqing, please continue reading. Brother Mulan, I haven't heard enough yet. The voice of Bai Zhiqing reading is really pleasant. Bai Mulan put the little prince back under the tree and gave a faint glance at the girls surrounding him. We need to work now. Let's continue reading it another day, he said. The girls reluctantly dispersed. Tang Anning has already poured 4 or 5 buckets of water, and now she is convinced that the group of onlookers just now have resumed their work. No one is watching her anymore, and she can sell things openly in the mall. Ding! 2 pounds of wild cabbage found, are you selling it? Price: 10 yuan. The mall has issued a prompt. Tang Anning took a closer look and indeed saw a large area of wild grey cabbage growing on the field ridge not far away. She nodded without hesitation and said, "For sale." Quickly, the mall launched a series of automatic sales operations, and Tang Anning's account immediately increased by 10 yuan, with a balance of 13.4 yuan. Ding! Discovered 2 pounds of small thistle, are you selling it? Selling price: 16 yuan. In the blink of an eye, Tang Anning's balance in the mall account increased by 16 yuan, becoming 29.4 yuan. These ubiquitous wild vegetables, due to their pure nature, can be sold at a relatively high price on the system. In no time, Tang Anning had 120 yuan in his account. Tang Anning watched as her account balance turned into 3 digits, trying to control her excitement. Traveling around the field not only earned 3 work points, but also earned an additional 120 yuan in the mall balance. This 120 yuan is enough for her to buy some delicious food in the mall. Tang Anning finished watering the ground, carried a bucket, and prepared to end today's agricultural work. The afterglow of the sunset fell on her, as if it had given her a layer of golden light. Waves of coolness hit, and Tang Anning instinctively shrank his shoulder. Tang Anning walked towards us after pouring water. Not far away, the few people who didn't mind the commotion shouted Bai Mulan's name again. Bai Zhiqing, she's coming to pester you again soon. Bai Mulan also straightened up this time and glanced at Tang Anning, who had just finished watering the ground in the distance. She carried the sunset on her back, with a golden glow enveloping her figure. In the cool evening breeze, she held an empty bucket in one hand, her shoulders slightly furrowed, and she looked soft and weak. Next to her, a short-haired woman snorted, "Who should I show you this fragile appearance? You fox seductive." The person who said this is Zhang Man, who is in the same educated youth group as Bai Mulan. She has always had a crush on Bai Mulan. Zhang Man often spoke ill of Tang Anning next to Bai Mulan, in order to make Bai Mulan dislike Tang Anning. At this moment, Zhang Man looked at Tang Anning walking towards the sunset, feeling a strong jealousy in his heart. As both women, Tang Anning exudes a feminine aura, even walking with a weak willow supporting wind. Every time Tang Anning came to pester Bai Zhiqing, Zhang Man noticed several young men beside him staring at Tang Anning, their eyes fixed straight. Zhang Man was very jealous of Tang Anning because of this, and every time she deliberately scolded Tang Anning as a fox seducer and indecent. Now that Tang Anning fell into the water, she had another reason to humiliate him. I heard that when she fell into the water, her clothes were soaked through. Ye Sanshan foolishly hugged her ashore and saw her naked. How could she still have the face to pester Bai Zhiqing? She doesn't want face, doesn't Bai Zhiqing? Bai Zhiqing is a pure and innocent scholar, how can she get entangled with such an impure woman like her? Zhang Man deliberately spoke very loudly, just to make Bai Mulan hear. As expected, Bai Mulan frowned and a hint of disgust flashed in his eyes. Bai Mulan had planned that if Tang Anning tried to harass him again later, he would tell Tang Anning straightforwardly not to bother him again in the future. He didn't want others to misunderstand him and Tang Anning. But what surprised everyone's jaw was that Tang Anning did not walk towards Bai Mulan. She walked straight to the side. When passing by Bai Mulan, Tang Anning did not even turn his head to look at him, as if he had never known him before. Zhang Man was stunned. It's surprising that Tang Anning didn't bother Bai Zhiqing all afternoon. Those who were preparing to eat melons did not see the excitement and left without interest. Bai Mulan was also very surprised. He had already planned the wording and was ready to warn Tang Anning in front of everyone, firstly to draw a clear line with Tang Anning, the second is to demonstrate his innocence to everyone. Unexpectedly, Tang Anning didn't even glance at him. Bai Mulan couldn't help but recall Tang Anning's past enthusiasm for him as he passed by without anyone around. Not only did Tang Anning surround him with long and short Mulan brothers, but he also saved up money to buy delicious food and deliver it to him through frugality. In stark contrast, Bai Mulan felt a faint sense of disappointment. Bai Mulan and the others in the field tidy up their tools and return to the educated youth center after work. Bai Mulan's friend, also another educated youth, Zhang Yunlong, walked over and patted Bai Mulan's shoulder, saying, "Brother Bai, I think Tang Anning just fell into the water and was feeling low. She didn't bother you today. But she's not that easy to give up easily. Maybe she'll come back to haunt you in a few days." Bai Mulan said in a low voice, "I don't want her to learn from this incident and stop bothering me from now on. She's not afraid of the gossip of the villagers, I'm afraid. Yunlong, you know I'm a simple person and don't want to get into so many messy things." Zhang Yunlong sighed and patted Bai Mulan's shoulder, saying with envy, "Brother Bai, you are truly a contemporary Lu Xiaohui, with a good character and such composure and integrity. If I were you and were entangled by a beautiful woman like Tang Anning, maybe I wouldn't want to return to the city and would just become my son-in-law in Day village." Bai Mulan listened to Zhang Yunlong's envious tone, and his pride resurfaced in his heart. He thought, perhaps Zhang Yunlong was right. Tang Anning fell into the water and got angry for a while. Maybe in a few days, Tang Anning will come to haunt him again. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Meeting Ye Fan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Meeting Ye Fan. Tang Anning found a secluded place and decided to exchange 120 yuan from the mall account for some food. She opened the mall and took a look at the food prices. White flour mantou. 1 yuan per piece, mixed grain steamed buns. 2 yuan per piece. Tang Anning is amazing. Why is the miscellaneous grain steamed bun more expensive than the white flour mantou? However, she recalled that when the economy developed in later generations, coarse grains were healthier and indeed more expensive than white flour. There are a total of 16 people in their family. If each person has a white mantou, a total of 16 white mantou is needed. Ye Fan sent her 2 white flour mantou during the day, so she needs to buy 14 more white flour mantou. Tang Anning immediately ordered 14 white flour mantou from the mall at a cost of 14 yuan. Mantou are not enough. There must be vegetables. Tang Anning thought that their family has been eating pickled vegetables and wild vegetables for a month now, and as for the last time they had meat and fish, it was already 3 months ago. Tang Anning purchased 2 pounds of pork belly from the mall for 50 yuan. I bought 2 more Chinese cabbage for 6 yuan. There is still 50 yuan left in the balance. Tang Anning remembered the empty oil jar in his kitchen and bought the remaining 50 yuan for oil and refined white noodles. I bought a whole big package for 120 yuan. Tang Anning took out the burlap bag he brought from home in the afternoon and put all the things he had bought into the burlap bag. If someone asks, she says the sack is filled with grass to avoid suspicion. After buying something, Tang Anning carried a burlap bag and walked home as if nothing had happened. As he looked up, his gaze collided with a tall, thin, and disheveled man. The man also saw Tang Anning, his thin face flushed with excitement, his clear eyes filled with panic, and he turned around and ran. Tang Anning quickly stepped forward and chased after him, Ye Fan. When the man heard Tang Anning calling his name, he seemed a bit incredulous. He stopped and his tall and thin body leaned against the wall, facing Tang Anning with its back. His whole body was tense, afraid to look at her, like a child who had done something wrong. Tang Anning looked at Ye Fan's appearance with both heartache and laughter. It seems that although he has suffered a brain injury, he is very clear in his heart that he feels guilty towards Tang Anning when he hears those unpleasant rumors in the village. Tang Anning opened the sack and took out a small pot of oil and a small bag of white flour from it, placing them not far from Ye Fan. I received the item and ticket you sent me last time. Please take back this pot of oil and this bag of flour. Ye Fan hurriedly shook his head desperately, so anxious that sweat fell from his forehead. He incoherently asked Tang Anning to take the things away. Tang Anning could only say in a commanding tone, "If you want to hold it, then hold it." Ye Fan was indeed afraid to speak. He waited until Tang Anning walked away before nervously walking out of the corner, bending down to hold oil and noodles in his arms. A silly and happy smile appeared on his dark and thin face. Tang Anning saw this scene in the distance and shook his head and smiled. Her kindness to Ye Fan made him so happy. "Oh, is Anning returning from the underworld?" A middle-aged woman's piercing voice rang out. Tang Anning followed the sound and saw Wang Li, the widow of Dashan village. Wang Li is a famous long-tongued woman from Dashan village, always active in the forefront of eating melons in Dashan village. At this moment, Wang Li squinted her eyes and asked Tang Anning with ill intentions, "Anning, I heard that you were carried out of the river by Ye Sanshan after jumping into the river. Ye Sanshan is a well-known fool in our village. Has he taken advantage of you? If he takes advantage of you, this matter cannot be brought down like this. You need to go and argue with Ye Sanshan's mother, otherwise your reputation is bad. How can you marry Bai Zhiqing in the future?" Tang Anning sneered inwardly. Wang Li knew that the whole village was spreading rumors about her and Ye Sanshan. Wang Li was deliberately stirring up trouble, coaxing her to make things worse, so that the whole village knew about Ye Fan holding her out of the water. Tang Anning smiled and said to Wang Li, "Aunt Wang Li, I won't bother you with my affairs anymore. You should pay more attention to the things that concern you, Wang Tingting and Lu Erden. When I passed by the river just now, I saw Wang Tingting and Lu Erden holding each other, and they were inseparable. Lu Erden is a famous scoundrel in the village who idles and does not work properly. Wang Li has warned her daughter Wang Tingting more than once not to allow her to interact with Lu Erden. Wang Tingting agreed verbally, but what Wang Li didn't know was that she often had private meetings with Lu Erden behind her back. After hearing Tang Anning's words, Wang Li was indeed furious. Where did you see it? Tang Anning pointed behind him and said, It's right by the West River. Several people have seen it. Wang Li was furious and said, Wang Tingting has been doing all this nonsense for me. Wang Li picked up a stick from the ground and cursed as she went to the West River to find Wang Tingting and Lu Erden. Tang Anning returned home carrying a burlap bag, while Wang Xiulian had already returned from the ground. Years of hard work and hunger have made Wang Xiulian black and thin, looking more than 10 years older than her actual age. At this moment, when she saw Tang Anning, Wang Xiulian's eyes turned red and she hugged her daughter, scolding her with heartache. Anning, we're not the same person as that Bai Zhiqing. If we can't do it, let's just let it go. Mom really doesn't want you to risk your life for that Bai Zhiqing. Wang Xiulian lifted her thin and rough hand as she spoke, wiping away her tears. Tang Anning felt guilty when she saw that Wang Xiulian was still worried about herself at an old age. She regretted her past lack of understanding and didn't say anything for the sake of a scumbag. Wang Xiulian also had to follow her in fear. Tang Anning secretly swore in her heart that she would stay away from the white scumbag in this life, focus on making money, and let the whole family live a good life with her. Tang Anning comforted Wang Xiulian and said, Mom, stop crying. Look at what good things I have brought you. With these words, she opened the sack and took out the pork belly, white flour mantou, Chinese cabbage, oil and refined white flour one by one. Wang Xiulian widened her eyes in surprise and said, Ning Ning, where do these things come from? These things will cost a lot of money. Especially those 2 pounds of pork belly. Wang Xiulian can't even remember the last time the whole family ate pork belly. Tang Anning naturally had to find a fair and straightforward reason to give these Dongxian a starting point, and then mentioned the matter of Yi Fan sending her food and meat tickets. Tang Anning secretly counted the stack of tickets and found that they could indeed be exchanged for similar items on the ground. Yi Fan unexpectedly sent so many tickets this time. Tang Anning thought that Yi Fan should not be completely foolish like the rumors in the village. He should have some understanding in his heart. Tang Anning speculated that Yi Fan must have heard some rumors in the village and felt guilty towards Tang Anning, so he sent in many extra tickets this time. Wang Xiulian also knew that Yi Fan always sent things to Tang Anning every now and then, so she was not surprised. She just sighed and said, Yi Fan used to be very handsome, but unfortunately became foolish later. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Chen Xiangyun with Bad Intentions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Chen Xiangyun with bad intentions. Before finishing speaking, a piercing voice suddenly sounded. So what about being foolish? Just treat my sister.in.law well. Mom, my sister.in.law's reputation is so bad now. It said that after she fell into the water, she was looked down upon by Yi Fan, and even if she wants to marry in the future, she won't be able to get married. Why don't we take this opportunity and let her and Yi Fan get married? The speaker is Chen Xiangyun. Chen Xiangyun stared straight at the things on the ground, his eyes fixed on them. This Ye Sanshan is really foolish. He is skinny and dressed in rags, yet he has given so many good things to his sister.in.law. Chen Xiangyun couldn't help but think that if his sister.in.law really married Ye Sanshan, wouldn't there be more good things in the family in the future? Therefore, Chen Xiangyun wholeheartedly urged Wang Xiulian to marry Tang Anning to Yi Fan. Wang Xiulian was afraid of Chen Xiangyun and usually endured it. Today, when she heard Chen Xiangyun match Tang Anning and Yi Fan, Wang Xiulian finally erupted. From the second wife's family, what is your peace of mind when you ask Anning to marry a fool? Even if Anning doesn't get married, I am willing to take care of her for a lifetime, and it's not your turn to interfere with her marriage. Upon seeing it, Chen Xiangyun thought to herself that she had guessed correctly. The old lady and her daughter had teamed up to deal with her. This family is going backwards. Second, come out of here. Listen to my mother's words. I will continue to be an outsider for your family, after all. Chen Xiangyun turned his head and angrily called out to Tang Anning, just as he was about to start a big fight as usual to regain sovereignty. Suddenly, he saw Tang Anning smile slightly. Her smile exuded a powerful tranquility, a tranquility that Chen Xiangyun had never seen before. Tang Anning changed his previous rejection and resistance towards Ye Sanshan and smiled at Wang Xiulian, saying, "Mother, I think what second sister-in-law said has a certain point. Marrying anyone is the same, and a woman getting married is just for the sake of happiness, as long as he treats me well. Do you think so, second sister-in-law?" Chen Xiangyun was originally maliciously trying to match Tang Anning and Yi Fan. She knew that Tang Anning had a high heart and only had Bai Zhiqing in her eyes, so she wouldn't even marry Ye Sanshan. She said this purely to disgust Tang Anning and also to anger Wang Xiulian. Who let Wang Xiulian and her daughter unite to bully her daughter. Law. Chen Xiangyun did not expect that she had not seen Tang Anning's furious appearance at all, but rather remained unusually calm. Especially at this moment, the peaceful smile on her face, although smiling, made Chen Xiangyun feel creepy. Chen Xiangyun also had no intention of causing trouble. He murmured, "Whoever you love to marry, marry whom?" He quickly turned around and went back to the house. Wang Xiulian was so angry that she gave Chen Xiangyun a fierce peek at his back. "Anning, don't listen to your second sister. Law. No matter how poor our family is, there won't be many more of you. Just stay at home and don't worry about what your second sister. Law says." Wang Xiulian thought Tang Anning was speaking angrily and comforted her repeatedly. Tang Anning said, "Mom, what I'm saying is true. I think Yi Fanren is quite good." Wang Xiulian stared at Tang Anning with wide eyes, her head unable to turn for a moment. "Anning, I know you've been stimulated by Bai Zhiqing this time, but don't be so unfair to yourself," said Wang Xiulian, her eyes turning red. She thought that her daughter must have abandoned herself and married Yi Fan because she couldn't bear the rumors in the village. If that's the case, Wang Xiulian won't agree to anything she says. She would rather raise her daughter for a lifetime than let her marry someone she hates. "Mother, I'm not talking angrily, I'm telling the truth." Tang Anning knew that her mother was the best person in this world to treat her, and she didn't have to explain it to anyone in this world, but she had to explain it clearly to her mother. "These days, after careful consideration, I suddenly felt that Yi Fan was actually very good. You see, he was tall and handsome when he enlisted, as you know. In the army, he won many medals of honor and hung them all over a wall of his home. When he encountered danger, he refused to leave his comrades alone and fled, but he injured his head to save them. This shows that Yi Fan. Essentially, he is a responsible comrade. Moreover, Yi Fan's injury may not necessarily be incurable. If his injury is healed, Yi Fan is superior to Bai Zhiqing in terms of appearance. The most important thing is that Comrade Yi Fan has a kind heart and treats me well. And rumors about me and Yi Fan are spreading everywhere in the village. Even if I don't marry Yi Fan, it will be difficult for me to marry someone else. As for Bai Zhiqing, from the moment I jumped off the river and he stood by, I no longer like him." Tang Anning recalled the scene before jumping into the river. She asked Bai Mulin to agree to be with her, otherwise she would jump into the river in front of Bai Mulin. Bai Mulin didn't say a word. After she jumped into the river, she was about to drown, and Bai Mulin stood by the shore, watching with a cold and indifferent expression that he would rather watch her die than be covered in the smell. Fortunately, Yi Fan rode his bicycle by and without saying a word, he jumped into the river with a thud and picked her up from drowning. Afterwards, in the face of various unpleasant rumors about Tang Anning and Yi Fan in the village, as a witness, Bai Zhiqing chose to be a shrunken turtle, allowing the rumors to fly, but refused to step forward to clarify a sentence for Tang Anning. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Completed in one meal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 completed in one meal. Tang Anning remembered the previous life again. Since her marriage to Bai Zhiqing has relied on her identity as a educated youth, and has not done any dirty or tiring work at home, leaving it all on her shoulders. Feeding pigs, raising chickens, and pulling 3 children. Tang Anning is exhausted every day and can't stand up straight. On the other hand, Bai Zhiqing still wears white clothes and black pants every day, dressed like a glass stick, holding a book in his hand, teaching the young girl in the village how to read, and even revealing a lace news with a girl. Tang Anning chose to believe in her husband and still managed the family tirelessly. She truly realized that she had married the wrong person after the implementation of the educated youth return home policy. Bai Zhiqing began to receive letters sent from the city, often avoiding her as if being a thief. At that time, Tang Anning was simple, without much thought. One night, Bai Zhiqing stayed up all night staring at the roof with his arm on his pillow. Tang Anning was worried about him and asked if he was feeling unwell. Bai Zhiqing didn't say anything, and the next morning, he left without saying goodbye. When Tang Anning dragged his 3 children into the city and found Bai Zhiqing in a disheveled state, they had already married a new wife in the city, and their new life was thriving. Bai Zhiqing is a selfish person, but unfortunately, she couldn't recognize people clearly in her previous life. Judging a person solely based on their appearance without realizing that a sense of responsibility is the most important quality. In the previous life, she had already made a big mistake, and in this life, she will never be foolish again. Returning to reality, Tang Anning saw Wang Xiulian looking at her with crimson eyes. Tang Anning quickly changed the topic and pointed to the things in the sack with a smile, saying, "Mom, today is a good day. We have something to eat now. The children will be back from school soon. Don't be fooled, let's quickly make the things. When the children come back, we can have hot food." Wang Xiulian finally regained her senses, wiped the moist corners of her eyes, and nodded repeatedly, saying, "Anning is right. Let's not be fooled, hurry up and cook for the children." So, Wang Xiulian and Tang Anning each tied on a dirty apron and quickly got busy in the kitchen. Chen Xiangyun from the second family never goes to the kitchen, she stands outside hesitating. Watching Wang Xiulian and Tang Anning take the pork and cabbage from the burlap bag into the kitchen, Chen Xiangyun's eyes rolled around. What if her sister-in-law steals them? So Chen Xiangyun gritted his teeth and followed him into the kitchen. With a smile on his face, he said, "Mom, sister-in-law, I'm here to help too." Wang Xiulian knew that Chen Xiangyun had no good intentions, and Tang Anning was even more aware that Chen Xiangyun was here to watch her for fear of her stealing food, so neither mother nor daughter paid attention to Chen Xiangyun. Wang Xiulian placed the pork on the cutting board, picked up the iron knife with a notch, and carefully cut a thin small piece with her hands. The remaining pork was carefully placed in a large bowl. Tang Anning, who was washing cabbage, couldn't help but stand up and said to Wang Xiulian, "Mom, what's that bit of meat for?" "You wash cabbage, I'll make meat." A large family of 16 people, old and young, with only such a thin piece of pork belly, each person doesn't even have enough to fill their teeth. But the whole family used to live such a difficult life. Tang Anning secretly swore in her heart that she would never fall in love again in this life, causing harm not only to herself but also to her own children, and even her mother couldn't lift her head in the village. In this life, she will work hard to make money and lead the whole family to live a good life. In the surprised gaze of Wang Xiulian and Chen Xiangyun, Tang Anning walked straight over and took the notched kitchen knife from Wang Xiulian's hand. With a series of cuts, the 2 pounds of pork on the chopping board had already been chopped into pieces. Wang Xiulian watched from the side, her heart pounding with fear. By the time she regained her senses, those 2 pounds of pork had already been chopped. Tang Anning explained, "Mother, boil these 2 pounds of pork into cabbage pork, and make the rest into pork belly. Let my brother and children have a good meal." Wang Shilian. Chen Xiangyun. Wang Shilian was heartbroken and kept shaking her head and sighing, saying that Tang Anning, who is not in charge, doesn't know that firewood and rice are expensive. With so much pork, how can she eat it all in one meal? Tang Anning said disapprovingly, "Mother, 2 pounds of pork belly looks like a lot, but there are 16 people and 1 share. Even if it goes to each person's bowl, it won't get much." Tang Anning is too familiar with the situation at home. Even if he doesn't want to eat the 2 pounds of pork belly in one meal, the rest will be taken by Chen Xiangyun for a reason, either by starting a small stove himself or sending it to Chen Xiangyun's mother's house. Just finish the meal in one go. Tang Anning skillfully put the cut 2 pounds of pork belly into a hot pot and first put it through with hot water. Chen Xiangyun was so angry that he wanted to curse when he saw his sister-in-law finish cutting all the meat. She originally planned to secretly hide half of these 2 pounds of pork belly and send it to her mother's house, but it was finished by her sister-in-law. After blanching the pork belly, Tang Anning made a portion of it with Chinese cabbage to make boiled pork, while the rest was mixed with sugar and oil to make a delicious pork belly. Before long, a tempting aroma emanated from the kitchen. A full pot of boiled pork with cabbage and a large bowl of fragrant pork belly were placed on the kitchen chopping board, making people drool. "Milk, we're back." The 7 children who had been running out all morning ran into the yard like cheerful sparrows. The eldest Tang Aigua, the second Tang Aimin, and the third Tang Aijuan also returned from the field after finishing their morning work. Smelling the fragrance wafting out of the yard, the 3 brothers Tang Aigua, Tang Aimin, and Tang Aijuan swallowed their saliva fiercely. "Which restaurant made this delicious? The aroma is so strong." The boss looked up and took a deep breath of the aroma in the air. The second son Tang Aimin widened his eyes and said, "I smell the aroma of meat. It's pork." The third person felt something fishy and walked quietly to his own kitchen, then exclaimed in surprise, "We have meat at home. Boiled pork with cabbage, and pork belly." In an instant, the eldest, second, and third all rushed into the kitchen, looking at a pot of boiled cabbage meat and a large bowl of red pork belly in front of them, thinking they were dreaming. 7 children, not to mention, climbed up and down around the stove one by one, swallowing saliva while pestering Tang Anning to ask, "Auntie, when can we eat meat?" For a moment, the kitchen was packed with people, especially a few bear kids jumping up and down, playing and making fun, turning the kitchen into a zoo. Wang Shilian couldn't drive people away no matter how hard she tried. The originally narrow kitchen suddenly flooded with so many adults and children, and now there was no place to even rest. Tang Anning smiled slightly and came up with a solution. She brought out another basket of steaming white bread and said with a smile to the children who were staring straight at the dishes and bread, "Today everyone can get a white bread. Hurry up to the hall and sit down obediently, waiting for the meal to be distributed. Those who don't listen won't be able to get it." As expected, as soon as the words fell, the 7 children, like little dogs receiving instructions, immediately dispersed and rushed out of the kitchen, running to the living room to sit obediently and wait for the meal to be distributed. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Whether to eat rice or not. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Whether to eat rice or not. Hull. Tian Qiuxiang from the eldest family and Ma Aoyan from the third family each returned carrying a large basket of pigweed. Upon learning that the family had made meat, both the eldest and third families looked gratefully at Tang Anning. If it weren't for Tang Anning, the family would have had to wait for a meal of meat for a long time. 16 people, 16 adults and children in rags, some standing, some sitting, both eyes staring at a pot of boiled meat with cabbage, a large bowl of braised pork belly with brown sauce, and a basket of steamed buns with white flour in the middle of the table. Chen Xiangyun of the second family couldn't wait to stand up, pick up chopsticks, and pick up braised pork belly in the bowl. Finally, his eyes lit up and he found the largest piece of braised pork belly in brown sauce. She couldn't resist being in the kitchen just now. Chen Xiangyun greedily put the biggest braised pork belly in his bowl. Pa! A pair of chopsticks blocked Chen Xiangyun's chopsticks. The biggest piece of braised pork belly that Chen Xiangyun had just selected fell back into the bowl. Chen Xiangyun looked up angrily and saw Tang Anning staring at her, saying coldly, "Second sister-in-law, my mother hasn't moved her chopsticks yet. This dish and steamed bun will have to wait for our mother to share before we can eat them." In the previous life, Chen Xiangyun was in charge of the family, causing chaos in the house. Not only is she lazy and often starts a small stove, but she also steals things from home and sends them to her mother's house, making life even worse for the once impoverished family. Chen Xiangyun relied on being an elementary school teacher, knowing characters, and crying and making a fuss to control the financial power of the family. He was confused and often didn't know where to spend his money, and the family often ate without stopping. In this lifetime, Tang Anning decided to seize the power of managing the family from Chen Xiangyun and return it to Wang Xiulian. And today happens to be an opportunity. Tang Anning angered Chen Xiangyun when he stopped Chen Xiangyun from picking up braised pork belly in brown sauce. Chen Xiangyun glared and said sternly, "Auntie, I used to be the one in charge of everything at home. I've been worried about this family. What's wrong with eating a piece of meat first?" Tang Anning refused at all and said coldly, "Since you think managing family affairs is too troublesome, then you can hand over the power of managing the family to our mother. This way, you won't have to worry so much in the future." Chen Xiangyun's face turned pale. Surprisingly, her sister-in-law asked her to hand over the power of managing the family. Absolutely impossible. She usually secretly takes out a portion of the small treasury of a large family and hides it secretly. If she hands over the power of managing the family, how will she do these small actions in the future? Chen Xiangyun's eyes turned and he turned to look at Tian Qiuxiang from the eldest family and Ma Ailian from the third family. He exclaimed, "Sister-in-law, Ailian, take a look at what my sister-in-law says. I have put in so much effort to manage this family, and my sister-in-law is stabbing me with a knife. You both saw it with your own eyes, and this family will immediately fall apart if it leaves me. Oh, my liver hurts." Chen Xiangyun plans to seek the support of Tian Qiuxiang and Ma Ailian. Tian Qiuxiang and Ma Ailian, the two sister-in-law, are usually respectful when they see her. They come to her for any expenses. Chen Xiangyun concludes that these two sister-in-laws dare not offend her. As long as Tian Qiuxiang and Ma Ailian both stand on her side, she will have a large number of people and be more straightforward when dealing with her sister-in-law. But Chen Xiangyun never expected that she had miscalculated. Although Tian Qiuxiang from the eldest family and Ma Ailian from the third family are usually respectful when they see her, in fact, they have long disliked her. Especially Tian Qiuxiang. Her family has 3 sons, named Dashu, Ershu, and Sanshu. 2 months ago, Sanshu had a fever. She went to ask Chen Xiangyun for medical expenses, but Chen Xiangyun said, "A slight fever won't kill you. Children are too spoiled and their luck is ruined." She sent Tian Qiuxiang away. Tian Qiuxiang suppressed her anger and went to her mother's house to borrow 10 yuan to buy medicine for Sanshu. The child cannot get money from the second family for medical treatment, but the second family is willing to spend money on themselves. "Today I will go to the town to buy a piece of Dacron cloth, and tomorrow I will ask someone to buy a pair of rebound shoes from the county." Although Tian Qiuxiang couldn't stand Chen Xiangyun, the whole family was afraid of him. Although her sister-in-law had a tough temper, she never paid attention to these trivial matters at home. Tian Qiuxiang couldn't find anyone to support her, so she had to swallow her anger. "Today, my sister-in-law unexpectedly got up with Chen Xiangyun for the first time. Of course, Tian Xiaoxiang didn't want to miss this opportunity, so she, patiently, said to Chen Xiangyun, "Xiangyun, I think Anning is right. You've been working too hard to take care of the family, so it's time for you to rest. Let's leave everything at home to our mother to manage." Chen Xiangyun was taken aback and didn't expect that Tian Xiaoxiang and her sister-in-law Tang Anning would stand in the same camp. This boss is really playing tricks in person and behind the scenes. Eating meat is a big deal, managing a family is even bigger. At this moment, Chen Xiangyun was too busy grabbing braised pork belly. Holding his breath, he turned to look at Ma Ailian of the third family and said, "Ailian, what do you think about this?" Ma Ailian couldn't bear to see Chen Xiangyun for a long time. She had seen Chen Xiangyun steal things from home and send them to her mother's house several times. She had told Tang Aijuan about these things, but Tang Aijuan asked her to do more than less, so don't meddle in your affairs. Today I finally caught the opportunity, and Ma Ailian couldn't bear it anymore. She poured out all the dissatisfaction she had accumulated in her heart for a long time and said with a strange tone, "I think Anning and sister-in-law are right. It's better to leave this house to our mother to manage. Second sister-in-law is so hard-working in managing the house, but as a result, our family still eats a lot and the children are starving every day, indicating that second sister-in-law is not suitable for managing the house." Before he could finish speaking, Tang Aijuan turned his head and gave Ma Ailian a bad look. Ma Ailian was afraid of Tang Aijuan, so she pursed her lips and didn't continue. Tang Anning saw the situation and said, "Since both the eldest sister-in-law and the third sister-in-law believe that the power of managing the family should be handed over to our mother, then let our mother take charge of the family in the future. Second sister-in-law, do you have any objections?" Chen Xiangyun suppressed her anger, and indeed the scene she was worried about happened. "My sister-in-law has indeed colluded with the old lady, and now I want to force her to hand over the power of managing the family." Chen Xiangyun's eyes were red and glared at Tang Anning. He said, "There are 16 people in the family. You can't just say the final say. We'll talk about the matter of taking charge of the family some other time." Chen Xiangyun then picked up chopsticks and prepared to pull braised pork belly into his bowl. Tang Anning once again stopped Chen Xiangyun with chopsticks and looked around at the people at the table, saying coldly, "It's better to choose a day than to collide. Today, the whole family is here. Let's let the whole family vote and see if everyone prefers our mother to take charge of the house or your second sister-in-law to take charge. The minority obeys the majority. If there are many people who support our mother to take charge of the house, from today on, this house will be handed over to our mother." Wang Shilian sat next to Tang Anning and was moved to tears when she heard that Tang Anning had given her the power to control the family. Back then, the second wife was crying and making a fuss, almost overturning the roof. She insisted on taking charge of the family, and if she didn't, she would divorce the second wife. She, as a mother-in-law, was once rumored in the village to be an evil mother-in-law, who bullied her daughter-in-law. In order to prevent the divorce of her second family, she had to hand over the power of managing the family. Since Chen Xiangyun took charge of the family, the life they have been living at home is also evident to all. The family often eats without stopping, often spending all their money before the middle of the month, and often having to rely on borrowing money to make ends meet for the second half of the month. If she could regain the power to run the family today, at least she wouldn't let the family rely on borrowing money to sustain themselves every month. Wang Shilian was thinking about it when suddenly someone patted the table and said, "Mom, are you still letting anyone eat this meal?" The speaker was none other than Chen Xiangyun's man, the second son of the Tang family, Tang Anning. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Striving for a Breath. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Striving for a breath. Tang Anning stared at Tang Anning. Just now, his wife had been stomping on his feet hard under the table. If he didn't support Chen Xiangyun, he would be punished if he went back at night. Tang Anning was afraid of Chen Xiangyun, so he had to speak up to support his wife. On one hand, he was his mother and sister, and on the other hand, he was his daughter.in.law. Tang Anning didn't want to offend either side, but in comparison, he was even more afraid to offend his daughter.in.law. With the support of his second son, Chen Xiangyun naturally became much more confident, even speaking louder. At this moment, the old man who had always had a low sense of presence at home, Tang Dezhuang, smoking a dry tobacco bag, glared at his second brother, and shook his head in disappointment. This second son really lives up to that old saying, he married his wife and forgot his mother. The atmosphere in the main room was very bad for a while. As usual, this storm has just calmed down. But today Tang Anning made up his mind to take over the power of managing the family from his second sister.in.law, Chen Xiangyun. Even if I offend her second brother, I have to come over. Chen Xiangyun has the support of her second brother, and she has the support of her eldest and third brothers. Tang Anning showed no weakness and turned his head to look at his elder brother Tang Aigua and his third brother Tang Aijuan, saying, "Big brother, third brother, today you also have a word to say, let's see who should take care of this family." Tang Aijuan knew that neither the second couple was good at picking on each other, so he looked at Tang Aigua and said, "I'll listen to big brother." At this moment, everyone at the table looked at the patriotic old Tang dynasty in unison. Tang Aigua served as the second captain of the production team in Dashan village. Although he was usually quiet, his words still carried weight in this family. He furrowed his brows, with wrinkles on his forehead, like the mountain valleys in Dashan village. Every family has its own difficult scriptures to recite. Just managing the second team is enough to bother him. Tang Anning had no intention of getting involved in the family's mess anymore, but since Tang Anning has raised the issue today, he, as the big brother, cannot continue to sit idly by. Tang Aigua pulled the tattered coat on his shoulder. Cadres in Dashan village like to wear a coat on their shoulders, including spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Tang Anning has maintained this habit since becoming the second captain of the production team. Tang Aigua cleared his throat and finally spoke up, "Since Anning proposed the idea of voting today, I think it's a good idea. The organization has been advocating democracy, so let's start with our family. Whether this family is managed by the second family or by our mother depends on everyone's voting results." Upon hearing this, Chen Xiangyun immediately wanted to stand up and refute. Unexpectedly, Tang Anning had already taken the lead, looked around, and said in a resounding voice, "So it seems that everyone should vote to decide who will take charge of the family." The person who agreed to let his second sister.in.law take over the family raised their hand. As soon as the words fell, Chen Xiangyun was the first to raise his hand. Tang Anning dared not delay and quickly raised his hand to support his daughter.in.law. Except for the support of Chen Xiangyun and Tang Anning to continue taking charge of the family, there is no other family member supporting Chen Xiangyun. Chen Xiangyun looked angrily at the eldest and third families, one of whom lowered his head and pretended not to see her, while the other looked around deliberately not looking at her. Chen Xiangyun felt both shy and angry, with no place to vent his evil fire. Tang Anning said again, "Raise your hand to support our mother's leadership of the family." This time, except for Chen Xiangyun and Tang Anning, everyone else on the dining table coincidentally raised their hands. Except for Tang Dezhuang, an old man with a low sense of presence. Tang Dezhuang thought in his heart that he was a father. Although he was also dissatisfied with the second family, he didn't want to offend them. Tang Anning gestured for everyone to put down their hands and said, "The result is already very obvious. Second sister.in.law, you should hand over the family affairs to our mother today. From now on, we will handle the family affairs. Big brother, sister.in.law, third brother, and third sister.in.law, if you have any matters in the future, please directly discuss with our mother." Tian Qiuxiang from the eldest family and Ma Aoyan from the third family quickly responded, their eyes filled with indescribable joy. Wang Xiulian looked at her daughter and was deeply moved in her heart. "My daughter has grown up and become more sensible, so I fought for her breath. Otherwise, let the head of the second family continue, this family will be finished sooner or later. After the head of the family was confirmed, Tang Anning looked at the children eagerly looking at the meat and vegetables and said, "Mom, please divide the meat and vegetables among everyone." The children immediately cheered and said, "Milk is dividing the meat for us." Chen Xiangyun sat at the dining table, staring at Tang Anning with increasingly fierce eyes. She suddenly stood up and angrily patted the table, saying, "I won't eat anymore." She just robbed a piece of braised pork belly, but Tang Anning, the little bitch, took the opportunity to take the power to run the family. This is the mother and daughter uniting to bully her daughter. In law. Chen Xiangyun threw his chopsticks and turned around before leaving. As usual, the whole family was accustomed to her urinary habits. Chen Xiangyun thought to herself that the old lady and two sister. In law should soon catch up and stop her, urging her to go back for dinner. Chen Xiangyun angrily returned to her own room and sat there, waiting for someone to catch up and persuade her to go back to eat. After all, she is the most important person in this family, and without her, the family cannot function properly. Moreover, today is a big feast, and this family will not leave her alone. Little did they know that at the dining table here, Tang Anning had already instructed Wang Xiuyan and her two sister. In law not to call Chen Xiangyun. Since sister. In law doesn't want to eat, let her rest on her own. Let's eat ours, Tang Anning said. Tian Qiuxiang, the head of the family, was originally afraid of making a scene and wanted to persuade Chen Xiangyun to come for dinner out of affection. However, on second thought, the person in charge of the family now is already the mother, not the head of the second family. As a sister. In law, why bother nodding and bowing to the head of the second family every day? In addition, upon hearing her sister. In law's words, Tian Qiuxiang sat still and decided not to persuade the second family this time. The second family has also become accustomed to it, not working, and even losing face. It's time to starve her. As for Ma Ailian from the third family, she secretly looked at her sister. In law with her eyes, and she didn't move either. Anyway, she followed the learning of the eldest family. Not to mention the men at home, the women at home don't move, and it's even more inappropriate for them to persuade. Moreover, they also had the intention of taking this opportunity to kill Chen Xiangyun's prestige. On this side, Chen Xiangyun sat in her own room for half a day, but no one came to treat her to dinner. Chen Xiangyun couldn't help but swallow his mouth when he remembered the big pot of delicious boiled meat with cabbage and braised pork belly with brown sauce. The anger dissipated, and now only the craving insects were causing trouble in their stomachs. She thought about that bowl of braised pork belly. There were 16 people, and each person could share one piece at most. And that pot of cabbage boiled meat, divided into each person's bowl, which is only a small half bowl. If she weren't at the table, wouldn't Wang Xiuyan skip over when dividing the meal? Chen Xiangyun thought about it and sat restlessly, anxiously starting back and forth in the room. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Encountering Ye Fan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Encountering Ye Fan. No, she can't afford to lose out. Chen Xiangyun immediately rushed out of the room and rushed to the main hall. This family, however, did not have any impact on the atmosphere due to her absence and enjoyed it one by one. At a glance, Chen Xiangyun caught sight of Xiao Long and Xiao Feng, both of whom were sitting next to Tang Anning, burying their heads in bowls and wolfing down their food. Then look at the unpromising man in his family. He is cooking meat with cabbage and eating mantou with white flour. He is sweating. This family not only shows no signs of being unable to do without her, but also presents a better state without her. Chen Xiangyun's anger suddenly rose from his heart. If you eat, you know how to eat. Chen Xiangyun walked over and slapped Tang Anning, who was buried in his work, on the head. This dead old lady has a conscience, even though she is not around, she has been given a share. Chen Xiangyun hurriedly took up his own bowl, picked up the white mantou, and left with a gloomy face. When he arrived at the room, Chen Xiangyun ignored the door and crouched on the ground, devouring food without considering his appearance. This meat is so fragrant. Every bite of this dish leaves her with an endless aftertaste. Chen Xiangyun ate heavily while thinking fiercely that Tang Anning, a woman with a snake and scorpion heart, had taken advantage of a lunch break to persuade her whole family to take away the power of her family. She can't swallow this breath. She must find a way to marry Tang Anning, this bad woman, out early so that the family can calm down. In the afternoon, Tang Anning took a leave with his team and planned to go to the mountain to have a look. There is no money left in the system account, she must search for some new items to sell on Taobao Mall. Dashan village is surrounded by mountains on all sides, and there are many wild vegetables growing on the mountains. In times of famine, the villagers rely on the wild vegetables at the foot of the mountains to survive. Tang Anning carried a bamboo basket and arrived at the foot of the mountain. Just as I walked up the mountain for no more than 2 steps, I heard a prompt sound from the system. Ding! Found 1 kilogram of wild fern, are you selling it? Price: 8 yuan. Tang Anning nodded and said, for sale. At the same time, a cluster of ferns at the foot disappeared. A transaction has just been completed when the system sends a prompt. Ding! Found 1 kilogram of wild kudzu root, are you selling it? Price: 80 yuan. Tang Anning's eyes lit up, wild kudzu root is really valuable. A pound of wild kudzu root has been working in the field for half a day. Tang Anning quickly nodded and said, for sale. She pondered in her heart, it seemed that she should go to the mountains frequently and find more valuable things. Otherwise, things like wild grey cabbage and wild dandelions won't make much money even after working hard for half a day. Tang Anning was staring wide-eyed, searching for other wild kudzu roots, when he heard another prompt from the system. Ding! 1 kilogram of wild chaihu has been found. Is it for sale? Selling price: 100 yuan. Wild chaihu. Tang Anning muttered to himself, why haven't we ever heard of this thing in the village before? How could this thing still be so valuable? Tang Anning nodded without hesitation and said, for sale. As soon as she finished speaking, a grass-like plant disappeared not far away, and at the same time, her mall account had an additional 100 yuan. Now Tang Anning understood that this grassy thing was wild chaihu, which belongs to the category of wild medicinal herbs marked in the mall. However, the people in Dashan village have limited knowledge and do not recognize this medicinal herb. It seems she's right. This mountain is indeed a treasure trove, hiding many good things that she doesn't know. Tang Anning explored the mountain and found that there was already a deposit of 1,584 yuan in his account. 1,584 yuan. According to the prices in the mall, we can afford their family's meal expenses for a week. If we follow the frugal standards of the past, maybe we can eat for a month. Thinking of carrying the heavy burden of the family's survival on his shoulders, Tang Anning instantly felt a sense of responsibility, wiped his sweat, and planned to continue climbing upwards. Go down, no. Go down. A voice suddenly startled Tang Anning. Tang Anning was taken aback and looked up in surprise, only to see a tall young man wearing tattered clothes blocking in front of her. His sharp and angular face was sunburned black like sorghum flour and steamed buns. He shook his head desperately, so anxious that the sweat on his forehead came down. A messy head of straw hair concealed the man's stunning appearance, coupled with his shabby attire, he looked like a beggar. Ye Fan. Tang Anning straightened up and looked at the man who was standing in front of her in a somewhat surprised manner. Why are you here? When Ye Fan heard Tang Anning talking to him, he seemed very excited and somewhat flattered. He chuckled, revealing 2 shallow dimples on his dark face. This was the first time Tang Anning had seen Ye Fan up close, and she was surprised to find that Ye Fan not only had sculpted facial features, but also had 2 cute dimples. On the mountain, from above, down. Ye Fan chuckled, revealing a mouthful of pure white flower teeth. He turned his head and pointed to the towering mountain behind him with his fingers as thin as withered bamboo. Tang Anning tried to understand Yi Fan's words. Did you just come down from the mountain? Yi Fan saw that Tang Anning understood his words and quickly nodded. Tang Anning smiled and said to Yi Fan, coincidentally, I'm planning to walk up again. The wild vegetables here have been dug up by the villagers. As soon as Tang Anning finished speaking, the smile on Yi Fan's face instantly disappeared, revealing a frightened expression. He kept shaking his head and swinging his hands in the air, saying, No, no. Tang Anning frowned and said, Can't we go up the mountain? Yi Fan nodded and shook his head again, No, I can't. Tang Anning originally planned to continue walking up the mountain today to see if there were any rare medicinal herbs that the villagers didn't know, and many of them were sold for a little money. Tang Anning asked Yi Fan, Why can't we go up? Yi Fan just shook his head vigorously and said, No. Go down the mountain, go down the mountain. Tang Anning sighed and looked up at the high peaks, then at the setting sun that was about to set in the west. Although Yi Fan did not tell her why she couldn't walk up the mountain, she knew that Yi Fan must be out of good intentions. Since that's the case, then listen to Yi Fan and go down the mountain. Tang Anning turned and walked down the mountain. She walked for a while, but when she turned around, she found that Yi Fan was still standing in place, staring blankly at her back. Seeing Tang Anning turn his head, Yi Fan's gaze instantly showed a flurry. Her dark face instantly turned red, and she nervously turned her gaze away, pretending to be looking elsewhere. Tang Anning saw Yi Fan's panicked appearance and remembered his attitude towards him before his rebirth. A faint sense of self-blame surged in his heart. She used to be too cruel to Yi Fan, and let's see how scared he was. However, even so, after recovering from his illness, Yi Fan did not argue with her. Tang Anning sighed and secretly swore in her heart that in this life, if she were with Yi Fan, she would definitely treat Yi Fan well. Yi Fan, aren't you going down the mountain? Tang Anning stopped and grabbed the basket on his shoulder, loudly asking Yi Fan who was standing in place. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Going down the mountain together. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors.